All right, I would normally say something about sign up for membership here. Given what's taking place over the last 12 hours, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to address that a little bit later in the show. There are starting to be lists of explanations circulated as to why Kamala Harris lost the presidential election and all of the things that she did wrong. The blame game has started. And one of the most important things I think has to happen is that if you are going to solve a problem, it must be diagnosed correctly. It must be diagnosed correctly. If you have a cut on a finger and it's diagnosed as a headache rather than a cut, and you take headache medication for the cut on your finger isn't going to get any better. You need a Band-Aid, maybe a little antibiotic cream. And so we have to start from a place where we say, what happened here and what didn't happen? One of the claims that is now being floated about is that Tim Walz was the wrong running mate for Kamala Harris, and that if Josh Shapiro had been selected, he would have carried the blue wall states. Harris would have won Pennsylvania, and she would have won Michigan, and she would have won Wisconsin, and so on and so forth. We have absolutely no evidence of that whatsoever. And in fact, there are real reasons to wonder whether choosing a Jewish running mate in Josh Shapiro, combined with Kamala Harris being a woman and half black and half Indian, I don't know that that would have been any better. In fact, maybe it would have been better in some parts, but it would have been worse in others. And to assume that the reason Kamala Harris lost is because she selected Tim Walz, when Tim Walz's favorability was off the charts and J.D. Vance's favorability was in the toilet, does not seem like the right blame game to play. Secondly, is the claim that Kamala Harris didn't explain or stake out her positions clearly enough. Well, maybe there is something to people didn't necessarily know what her positions were on certain issues, but I would argue to a great degree that's because it wasn't really a referendum on that. This was a referendum on, to some degree, identity. Do I want the wannabe dictator, convicted felon white dude, or do I want the black woman? And unfortunately, in this country, a lot of people didn't want the black woman who, as usual, had to fend off allegations of Marxism and communism and socialism. Should she, as a general principle, have focused more on policy? I, as an individual, say yes. I don't know that at the national level, that is what would have made a difference. Third, the focus on Trump's a fascist failed Kamala Harris. People want to look forward. Harris talking about a fascist Trump was looking backwards. I don't know that I buy that talking about fascist Trump is looking backwards, because Trump is saying he wants to be the future. And talking about whether you want the future to be a fascist future or not seems completely relevant. The problem is that there is far more of an association with communist, socialist, Marxist, which were the labels thrown at Kamala Harris. That's way more effective than saying, oh, Trump's a fascist or he wants to be a fascist, etc. So I struggle to believe that that's the explanation. There is the claim that too many cooks in the kitchen in Harris's campaign muddled the campaign messaging, where it was joy, but it's also Trump's a fascist, but it's here's my economic policy, and it's we're going forward, not back. I don't think that that is unique to this campaign, but it is true that Trump essentially ran on everything's terrible and I'm going to fix it, even if that's not true. I'm going to deport a ton of people, and a lot of this country like that. Men and women's sports are a real problem, and there are contingents in critical states that resonated with, even if it's not showing up anywhere as a major issue overall. And that certainly may be a factor. And finally, another element of blame that's being put forward is that Kamala Harris's team focused too much on setting up for a legal battle, assuming it would be way closer than it was. Trump ended up blowing her out in Florida, the Pennsylvania, Arizona. You know, we look at all these, not Arizona yet, Nevada. A lot of these were nowhere near as close as they were in the past. And therefore, all of the effort going into preparing for the legal battle was for nothing. It should have gone into campaigning. That may be true, although that is one of those hindsight is sort of 2020 situations. I don't think a single one of the blames that I just outlined for you really explains what made sense here, what took place, makes sense of what took place here. To me, what happened is actually far simpler, and it's going to come off as far more offensive than these explanations, but I think it is far more accurate. Number one, millions of Americans quite literally have no idea what's going on. And I know that it's sort of like, oh, David, are you doing the Republicans are stupid thing again? Listen, there's plenty of uninformed Democrats. There's uninformed independents. But there is a degree to which millions of these Trump voters have literally no idea what's going on. At a recent rally, a bunch of young white men, Trump voters, were asked, why are you voting for Trump? And they said, because gas prices are so high. The truth is that gas prices are at their lowest post-pandemic point, tied with a bunch of post-pandemic lows. That is just the truth. So saying I'm voting for Trump because of high gas prices when gas prices are low, you are simply clueless, and Trump benefits from the clueless vote. Same thing with inflation. Oh, inflation's so high. Inflation has come down dramatically under Joe Biden. And in fact, it's come down faster than in other Western developed nations. So that's one thing, that a lot of people are just completely clueless about what's going on. Number two, Trump made a play on men with a particular perspective on masculinity. Now, as many of you know, we did a piece on it. Many of you also know I've been recommending that you check out some of Scott Galloway's recent monologues and discussions of masculinity, of a more logical approach to masculinity. Trump made the play for men. He won men, and he is deliberately and overtly trying to appeal to a certain type of man, going on the Rogan show, going on the Milk Boys, the Nelk Boys, whatever they call themselves, bringing in RFK, who I believe is known that he's a steroid guy. I thought it was known anyway. Sort of bolstering this idea of the roid raging type aggressive man and saying, welcome and come on in, and you can be more like that if you vote for me. That worked. And as great as Tim Walz is, he can fix cars and trucks, and he hunts, and he knows football. It was not enough to counteract what was an appealing message to white men from Donald Trump. And then third, and here's it hurts to say it, millions of people liked what Trump was genuinely offering. Trump was genuinely offering the opportunity of a feeble, cognitively declining, wannabe dictator authoritarian who promised mass deportations. They preferred that over the black woman Democrat. Period. Full stop. They preferred it. This isn't a narrow electoral win. Trump won the popular vote as of right now. So the blame game is useful if you're accurately diagnosing the problem. I don't believe it's accurately being diagnosed based on what I just told you as far as the talking points. I think my 3 talking points more accurately reflect what's happening. Now, I want to hear from you on this, because if we're going to move forward, we need to understand what happened. Not everybody may be ready for that, but when we are, we have to discuss it.